room is so time red. I love it. Well, it's so lovely to have all four of you here. Thank you so much. Can't wait to talk all about women's sports. I recently read a very interesting quote in a Time article. Of course, Kristen Press said that, Kristen Press, who is a two-time World Cup winner and an entrepreneur, said that she thinks there's only two markets that are really booming right now: AI and women's sports. So, Kara, I would love to start with you, if we could. What do you make of this quote? Do you agree?
I think Kristen Press has very good quotes. Not just because she's an Angel City player, but it's interesting. I agree with her. There's obviously other markets growing as well, but it's kind of interesting because one of them is sort of taking something away from us in theory that's making us human, and the other one is leaning into what makes us the most human: gathering, celebrating, possibly the only place where a Democrat and a Republican sit next to each other in a stadium and find something in common before they realize they don't get along. But very quickly, I'd say on women's sports, just the total, I love to give some data to start. The total market for women's sports is $1.3 billion. That's up about 30%. That's incredible. Anyone know how big the men's sports market is? Roughly a half a trillion. So you have a fraction of a percent still going to women's sports, and we are simply more entertaining. I mean, the men are entertaining too. We just have more words and more to say, and Ashlyn did very good locker room footage back in the day.
Thank you.
Ashlyn, what is the biggest change in women's sports that you're seeing and feeling right now?
I think, the biggest thing that I'm noticing is the visibility. And I'm noticing, imagine if you put women on primetime, people will actually watch. I don't think that anything has necessarily changed in terms of talent. I think there have been generations and generations of incredible athletes for a very long time, paving the way for a lot of us sitting up here now. It's just finally people are being able to see it. People are, I truly believe seeing is believing, and visibility matters, and we're now giving that to our younger generation, and people are tuning in at crazy rates because it's good to watch. It's good business to invest in women's sports. But for so long, we didn't have access. I'm 38 years old. I was playing championships at 11 p.m. Eastern or 11 a.m. Eastern time. Well, no shit, no one's watching. Like, this is the real hard facts that we've lived for so long, and now we're seeing that change. You're seeing, the U.S. Open. There's a ton of people tuning in over watching women's sports compared to watching men's, and it's because it's entertaining. It's really good, and I think that's the biggest change, is the access to actually see it.
And what would it have meant to you when you were playing to have that level of visibility? How would it have changed things?
Well, it would have changed my back pocket. I mean, these women are finally getting paid with what they're worth, and we have a long way to go. And that's the crazy part is, my life would be very different than it is now, but I think that's the point here, is we all have an obligation and we have a responsibility, and I don't take that lightly. So it's constantly the fight and the awareness and doing what's right to make sure. I mean, I have a young daughter, and I want her to have the same access as her brother.
I want to talk for a moment about the Olympics. There was this very important stat that got thrown around a lot in the coverage this year, that this was the first games that had gender parity on the field of play. So 50% women and 50% men competing at the games, which is a huge deal. It's really striking that it took so long, as it always is whenever we talk about firsts or first time something like that has happened. But it's also good to acknowledge and celebrate when progress is made. Maria, you were on the ground this year covering the Olympics, interviewing a lot of the athletes. Can you share one or two really memorable, important moments when it comes to women's sports?
Yeah, for sure. One of the reasons, first of all, that I came over to NBC was to cover the Olympics, because one thing that they do is women are the center. Aly is the center of the coverage, okay? Because gymnastics, everyone understands that that is one of the biggest sports that's gonna come out of any summer games. And if you go back and watch our coverage of even, say, track and field, the stars you're walking away with were going to be Sha'Carri. You knew who Gabby Thomas was. Like, women kind of led our coverage. And to get to what Ashlyn's kind of saying, it's like they always act like it was the chicken or the egg. Like, well, no one's watching. It's like, put them in prime time and see who watches. And we had like the best numbers we've had, and I don't even know how long, with the summer games because of women who stood up, Simone Biles, and being able to see Suni Lee. Like, people were tuned into the stories of these young women. So it's more about having the opportunity to be in that slot than it is about whether or not people will watch. If dudes are there, they're gonna watch. If women are there, they're gonna watch, and they're gonna be in awe. But to your point, I think it was the 1900s when women were first allowed to even compete in the Olympics. It took until like 1980 until they let us like run marathons because they thought our bodies weren't strong enough. We have babies. Like, push whole humans out, and they're like, but I don't know if you can run a marathon like a man. And so, like, those are the things that women are constantly battling against. You know what I mean? Like, these ideas and these biases when it comes to coverage or how the female athlete should be viewed. And I do think that the Olympics, in a lot of ways, knocks down those barriers because it lines men's gymnastics up with women's gymnastics, and you see the numbers right in front of you. You see women's soccer versus men's soccer, and you see the number, and they're outrating. They're outrating the men, and that happens at the Olympics.
Yeah, like, who among us doesn't immediately think of Simone Biles when we start talking about this year's Olympics, right? Like, show of hands, please. Simone Biles fans? Yes.
Everyone.
I was telling Aly, I grew up as a gymnast, not at all at the level that Aly competed at, obviously, but it does really stick with you, and I really loved watching her, and there was nothing more powerful for me than seeing her come back after what happened at Tokyo and competing at the highest level with this big smile on her face. And it was your first Olympics attending and not competing. What was that experience like for you?
It was a lot more fun being able to. I was about to say we had a time. Yeah, we saw each other at a party.
Yep.
It's a lot more. Someone actually tonight asked me how it was, the difference between watching and competing, and it is a lot more relaxing being able to watch. I got to go with my family and just to be able to experience it and to cheer the athletes on and just to be able to see it from a different side of it. It was really kind of a pinch me moment. It was very special and just feel really grateful I was able to experience it. I was very nervous watching the gymnasts, especially on beam, and it's so quiet in the arena oftentimes when the gymnasts are competing, and I can remember that still when I was competing, and so just being back in that environment, it's just, you know, it takes so much hard work and so much dedication. I think so many people don't realize how much goes into it and really how nerve-wracking it is when you're competing in the months leading up to it, and just I'm so excited that they all did so well, and to see how celebrated they've all been and see the success of all the other Olympic athletes, it's really, really cool. And I think, you know, there's a lot of talk about social media where it can certainly, there's a lot of, can be a lot of negatives to social media, but I think one of the positives is we're seeing so many more stars come out of the Olympics, and so many more athletes, I think, are able to show their personality and show who they are. So it's been really fun for me to see and follow all these Olympic athletes just have so much success and getting to see them go off to do amazing things. And then, you know, of course, women in sports, but it was also really cool to see men's gymnastics doesn't typically get a lot of attention at all, and so to see the men's gymnastics team also get a lot of attention, I thought was really exciting, so I was really happy for them too.
And you can watch one of them on Dancing with the Stars
Yes,
now,
yes.
if you would like to. I want to talk about one of those stars, Jordan Chiles, who was just such a breakout inspiration and also went through something really, really tough, being ultimately stripped of her bronze medal for floor. I think we'd all like to know, like, as a friend and a former gymnast, what can you say to someone who's going through a moment like that, knowing how much pressure is put on these athletes?
Yeah, I am very committed to helping Jordan in any way that I can. And I think what is happening is just so unfair, and it honestly doesn't make sense. And so what's so unfair and devastating about it is it's someone's job to keep the time at the competition. So all the other competitors get 4 minutes, and then the last competitor gets only 1 minute. So it's someone's job to make sure the inquiry is submitted within that minute time frame. Otherwise, they can't accept it. So somebody accepted it, which means they confirmed it was under a minute. And then the judges then from there admitted they made a mistake with the score and they changed the score. So it makes no sense. And I think that Jordan deserves to have answers as to how they're overruling this. And so I am just totally devastated and gutted for her. And it's just, I'm so proud of the way that she's handled everything, and to watch, I've known Jordan for a very long time, and just to watch her have so much, the way that she had so much sportsmanship throughout the Olympic Games, and to see how much she's such a big part of the culture of gymnastics changing, and how much fun she has when she competes. You can really see how supportive she is of the other athletes, and she just brings such a fun energy to the sport. So I support her so much, and I think she deserves answers, and I also think she should keep her medal. The IOC has given out more than one medal before, and they should do that now, and it's wrong. They're taking away her medal, and they should not take away her medal. So I have to say that.
Emphatic support from the room on this idea. Let's talk briefly about mental health in sports. Jordan posted that she was having a hard time with her mental health, and I can totally understand that, especially with all that social media feedback you were talking about. You and Ashlyn both have been really open in the past about just all of the struggles that can come with being under so much pressure. We've talked about depression, anxiety, disordered eating, addiction. Is there one thing that you learned as an athlete, and Ashlyn, I'll throw this to you, that you would want to share with people who might be struggling and looking for guidance?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I think it's a topic we need to talk a lot more about. I'm a firm believer in sharing your scars. If I can walk this life in the short amount I have at 38 years old, and the things that I've had to see and witness and go through, if I can make it easier for someone else, it's my job to share my scars. So I'm not, I feel no kind of way about just talking about really hard topics, and talking about things that other people feel nervous to share or say, or I'm very open and honest when I'm struggling and when things are hard. And at the end of the day, I'm human. I'm just like anyone else, and I struggle at times, and life gets difficult and life gets hard, and I'm this athlete and I have all these expectations from that, and I'm a single mom of 2 very young babies, and there's a lot that come with that, and I live my life in the public eye, so everyone actually thinks they have an opinion of me and who I am when they don't know me at all. So it's just so heavy to carry all the time. And I am the first. I mean, we were sitting backstage, and we're just our life coach and our therapist, and we're doing it's just humanizing it in those moments of like, I see you, I got you, I'm just like you. And the more we can hold each other through really hard times and make space for that, we'd all live in a better world. Because we all go through the same shit every single day, and people need other people. If we are gonna survive this, we need each other. So we have to start leaning in.
Did you want to jump in, Kara?
Just really quickly, I think when you're a professional athlete, which I never was, but I was a D1 rower, we didn't have a lot of oxygen. And you are in the public spotlight, it's a particular kind of stress. It feels that way sometimes as an investor, which I know sounds ridiculous, but when you're changing systems, when you're showing up, when you, even at Angel City, people ask me for autographs on occasion. It's very odd. I know it's very odd, but I think the pressure of changing systems and the pressure of being out there always on, and are you making statements when something happens politically or not, all of these things happening, really surrounding yourself with the team and with people who see you. The last couple of years, I mean, the no's we got at Angel City, we raised $1 million right before COVID. It almost didn't happen. We got 100 no's. We talk about that a lot. In some ways, that was not the hardest part. The hardest part was when it started working, and the weight of wanting to make sure this team worked and that the right people were around it that reflected your values. In some ways, the quiet struggles you don't hear about, and we have to support each other across all parts of the ecosystem.
While we're talking about the structure of the team, you have new ownership.
Yeah, so Angel City last week officially became the most valuable women's sports franchise in the world. An overnight success that took 5 or 10 years. And we brought in Willow Bay and Bob Iger as our new control owners, incredible partners, really values aligned, LA, female-led, all the things we really cared about. And it's meant a lot to the world because, they knew a few things about communicating, media, sports, and just wonderful to have that kind of partnership as we grow the team.
Maria, you are getting football season started. That's very exciting. You posted a sweet photo of you and some of your colleagues holding up boards that say how many years they've been on the job. And it's Maria, and it's a bunch of men who are like 13 years, 18 years, 34 years. You're at 4 years.
I'm a senior.
That's amazing. How does it feel to be creating a legacy as a woman in this very male-dominated sphere?
I appreciate the question because there's times when I literally am almost in tears, kind of to what you guys say, because the space is not meant for us. It's not meant for women. It's not built to support and hold us up in any way, shape, or form. So I felt, I've been doing this for about 12 years now. And when I first started out, I used to be in production meetings with a Nick Saban or insert any major college coach and a director and my producer. And I'm this 20-something-year-old black girl, and they're all 50 plus, and they have all they're all white dudes. They have something in common. And I felt like the outsider. I would not say anything in any of those meetings. I didn't want to speak. I felt like if I did say something, they'd be like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You don't even understand football. To flash forward to now where I'm sitting in a chair. A woman's never hosted football night in America. That's never happened. And I appreciate that. And I'm not there because I'm the best to ever do it. There's a lot of women who were as good or better than me and should have been sitting there, but the world wasn't ready. And so we just got to the point where people are okay with a woman disseminating their football information and leading a group of men to do it. It's 2024, we just got here. And I go to my meetings now, and the guys they defer to me at times. They ask questions. We're trying to make our show even more conversational, and they're like, listen, Maria, you gotta lead, you're the leader, you're gonna do this and that. So to go from this girl who was in the corner and so afraid to now where we are, shows a little bit of the evolution of sport that we're kind of talking about. But also speaks to, and they were up here saying, Valerie Jarrett and everyone, finding your voice and how powerful that can really be when you do find it, because you might be the one that breaks through, and we all need you. We all need you to say the thing that no one's saying.
That's really good advice. Let's linger on the idea of inequities in sports for a minute here. Inequities between men's sports and women's sports. There's a pay gap. We've heard about this problem before. We know about this. But the pay gap isn't just about player salaries. It's about access to sponsors. It's about prize money. There's also issues when it comes to training facilities and quality of trainers and travel accommodations, just all these things. I would love to hear from all of you as the experts, where are the problem areas and what are the solutions that you're seeing that you're really excited about? And maybe Kara, we can start with you.
Yeah, so I quit my big fancy job in tech to go do women's sports full time, and there's also a pay gap on paying every part of the ecosystem. So I raised $150 million with my colleague Christine, Jasmine Robinson, et cetera, to invest in women's sports teams, leagues, and rights. It's the first fund in the world that's exclusively focused on women's sports. We need more. It's hard work. You can't just put money to work. You got to bring talent in and work on it every day until midnight and wake up at 4 in the morning thinking about it and caring about it. When you have an injury, we have Aly Raisman has an injury at Angel City right now. She wants to go to Doha. We say, okay, how do you make that happen? And so you do need to get excellent. I mean, I remember Ashlyn was really important in my journey, not just because she had the best Instagram account ever after she won World Cups, but because she and Kelly O'Hara and Kristen Press and Alex Morgan and Megan Rapinoe, they educated us before and probably thought we were crazy. But I remember what you guys said. They said, put people in the front office who are as excellent as we are on the field. Because unless you get revenue at the team level and the league level, and you don't mistake good for great, you can't pay people. Or you're going to bring in people who, you need to actually build businesses, get distribution, get the sponsors in. Who's at dinner with the sponsors and the partners? Who's convincing, DoorDash to give you the $10 million contract before it makes sense? So it is excellence. These women deserve excellence at every part of the ecosystem. Sometimes they look like standard issue men who worked in the NFL, and sometimes they don't. And you got to pull them out of new places and really figure out how to get excellence in the full ecosystem and pay these women more and more. That's how I started as a part of the U.S. National Team Players Association pay equity fight, and then somehow I started a team because they taught me so much.
It's very true. But what I will say is what makes women so powerful, and I can only relate based on my experience with the U.S. Women's National Team, is you can only sit around and demand change for so long until you say, fuck it, I'll do it myself. Sorry, no disrespect. We sued our employer. We were tired of it. We were like, if you're not going to pay us, and when we sit in front of you and tell you all the reasons why you should be paying us, and then you still pay the men more for losing and showing up than for us winning and selling out stadiums, great, we'll take you to court. We don't care how long it takes. So it's like sometimes you have to, like you said, you want the right people doing the work, but sometimes you have to do the work yourself. And my team we were a bunch of disruptors. We didn't care because we had no choice. If it wasn't going to change based on the people around us, we had to make it change. And not only did we do that, we sacrificed our jobs on the line. And we had moms, we had people, paying bills for families, and it didn't matter because we knew the weight and the importance of the moment. And it was at a time people couldn't not listen. They had to, or we were going to make them.
Beautiful. Yeah, same. I told you guys earlier I went to NBC and I was like, yeah, I want to see women, but I was like, if you're not going to pay me, what are we doing here? What are we doing? Do I have to have 16 jobs to the man's one? Do I need 18 jobs to the man's one for anything to be equitable? And so sometimes it does take looking around and being like, no, I'm going to choose me in the situation. I think for a singular, everyone sitting down here in these chairs today, what you can do is watch. You can tune in. You honestly just turn it on and leave the room. I don't care. You ain't got to look at it if you don't want to. But y'all better turn it on, okay? Turn the WNBA on, turn the women's soccer on. Tune into it. I think, as broadcast partners and people, if you're out there, we need to, the Olympics are great, and it's great that every 4 years that happens, but how amazing would it be if every single year there was a Super Bowl of gymnastics or the Super Bowl of some kind of track league? Because right now, women just don't have as many places to be able to earn the dollars to train year round. There's a very select few that can, but not everyone can in the way that men can and be paid and go overseas and still make money. And we're seeing a little bit of change there. There's a new women's volleyball league here, women's basketball, they're starting some more leagues. So there's just more opportunities for people. So these young women don't have to leave their families to earn money. So that's another big thing. And then, we say it all the time, but it's it's gonna take advertising dollars, and it takes corporations. They gotta come in and put their money where their mouth is and realize women they have the power of the dollar. They're the ones buying everything at home. Do we truly support women? And if we do, then we support women's sports because we want all of our young ladies to believe they can be as strong as these two right here. The world has nothing on them as far as like role models is concerned.
Okay, trying to think of how to follow that.
Financial literacy has been a huge priority for you. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think also to connect what you guys said so beautifully, I really think that financial literacy and mental health is very correlated. I think that, when I look back at myself when I was younger, and you talked about this when you were in meetings when you were younger, I think so many people are afraid to ask questions because I think many of us can relate to maybe being afraid that we might sound dumb or someone's going to make fun of us. And I think that teaching kids from a young age the importance of there's no such thing as a bad question or a dumb question is really important. And I also think that that will not only give them confidence, but I also think when a child is more empowered to ask questions, I also think, I'm very passionate also about athlete safety. I think that a child will be more empowered to speak up if they are not afraid of someone making fun of them. So I think that it's kind of I might feel like I'm jumping all over the place, but I do believe that if kids are empowered to ask questions and women are empowered to learn about finances, because it shouldn't just be a man's world. I think that encouraging people to believe that no matter what question they have, whether it is about financial literacy, whether it is about asking for help, about mental health, whether it is about what their salary is, I think all those things should just be normal conversation. I've heard so many women say that years in, they talked to a coworker who has the same exact position as them and found out their coworker is making 3 times as much money as them. So I think that in our world, sometimes it can feel really wrong to talk about money. But I actually think the more we can talk about it and normalize it and ask questions and understand what other people are getting paid, what is normal, what they should be asking for and feeling empowered to actually speak up, I think that's really when we can start to believe in more of an equal future. And I think all of it is, this power dynamic of men making more than women. I think it also is correlated to our world where, a lot of women feel unsafe. I think this power dynamic, everything is very, very correlated and it all kind of bleeds into each other. So that was kind of an answer that's sort of all over the place, but I do think it starts from us as adults empowering kids to speak up and know that their voice is powerful, and no matter what their question is, they should be encouraged to ask it, and the adults around them should listen and support them.
And adults can also, we can do that as adults too. We can ask the questions that we might feel shy or afraid to ask. You've given us so much to think about. Thank you all. Really appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.